Hello, my friends. This is old Ponytail Bob. I'm gonna tell you some stories about my life and tales with a twist. The good times, the bad times, most importantly, what I learned along the way and how I learned it. Not that you should do it, but tell you what made the difference in my life and put me where I am today, which is feeling more free than I ever have in my life. Just to give you a perspective, I was 3 years old when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. So I've been around, I've seen a lot, I learned a lot with triumphs and tragedies, and I thought I would just tell you some stories about what I learned that made a difference, like what am I, who am I, what's the purpose, and all that sort of thing. And then throw in every once in a while some really funny stories and things that happened along the way. So that's what old Ponytail Bob is going to be doing. So if you're ready, let's get started. See, I decided I'm going to be presenting these stories as chapters. So this is the very first chapter, chapter 1, called The Stranger. And I'm putting this first because for me, I've learned that so many of the challenges I've had to face in life and had trouble with came right around to how I felt about me, how I compared myself to others, and how sometimes I was my own worst judge and jury. So I'd like to start off this whole series of chapters with The Stranger. Well, hello, this is your old buddy Ponytail Bob again. And this time I'd like to share with you, I'd like to read you a story that I just finished. I'll leave it up to you for concluding what it may mean. I know what it means to me. I call the story The Stranger. I shall forever remember the day the stranger appeared in my life. I was walking silently and slowly. I was totally alone. I was a sad and solitary wayward traveler. I was moving everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. The bag slung over my shoulder was empty except for the remnants of countless shattered hopes. As my eyes adjusted to the sunlit spot a few steps ahead from my darker place in the forest, I caught my first glimpse of the stranger. As I drew near, a strangely strong feeling flooded over me, like knowing and not knowing both at the same time. It was almost as if he had been waiting there for me. When I finally stopped and looked into his face, he simply smiled and, with a gesture of his hand, offered me a place in his warm, sunlit grass. He knew I could not continue much further. I accepted right away because I was deathly tired, yet would have kept walking with no place to go or even a reason to be there if I found it. He looked over at me once we were comfortably rested in the green morning grass and quietly said, I have a story to tell you if you choose to listen. Since I had nothing to do and nowhere to go, I was ready to lean back and listen. Now, curious to hear what he was about to say. He began his story by telling me about his early life. He had been born free as a bird, he said, and had spent countless hours and days joyfully soaring through crowd after cloud, landing only when tired, then beginning again with even more energy. But then came a day, he said, like no others. He told me he didn't know what they were because storm clouds were new to his soaring. Suddenly and without warning, he found himself being flung wildly about where his wings held no sway, where nothing made sense. Up seemed like down and down seemed like up. He landed on the ground, scattering feathers all around. Almost immediately, he said, he found himself surrounded by many unfamiliar sets of eyes. Coming forward, they checked him out, then indicated he should get up and follow, which he did, he said, in hopes that they would lead him to a comfortable place where he could rest and restore before off once more. That was not to happen. In fact, before he had even one moment to rest and relax, he was confronted by a group of serious, even scowling, unfriendly faces. Without a word, they motioned for him to follow. Not a request, but an order. Their path led straight to what looked like an old courthouse, which was exactly what it was. He was to be put on trial. When his trial began, he was accused of very bad things, like having profoundly deficient flying skills, not acting responsibly in the face of a storm, and a variety of other "you should have known better" accusations. He had so little experience in soaring, he told me, that he thought their accusations must be quite true. And with that belief, he became his own judge and jury and offered up no defense. Their accusations became his. He found himself guilty as charged, dashing his hopes to ever fly joyously free again. Then came the day he told me about, when a stranger quietly appeared in front of him. The stranger asked me why I was not flying anymore. I told him I was no longer good enough to fly. "How do you know this?" he asked. "Who told you that you could not fly? Was it those scowling and serious ones over there who no longer try to fly themselves? Did you believe what they said? Is that why you no longer think you can fly? Did you accept their accusations as truth? Did you become your own judge and jury?" As the stranger looked directly at me, he said, I suddenly saw myself. I had stopped flying when I thought I couldn't. He said, the stranger then said to him, I see you still have wings, and the winds of the sky await on high. Do they not invite you once again to try? Is not the only thing holding you back your belief that you can't? And where did that belief come from if it was not from you? My stranger then told me that to his surprise, as soon as he stretched out his wings, the winds joyously lifted him back into the sky. Having finished his story, he faced me and said, I hope you have heard my story. He flew quietly away towards the high clouds. Some time later, when only his memory remained, I continued thinking about the stranger. Where did he come from? Why was he here? Who was he? Little by little, his face appeared. The stranger that day was me.